Believe it or not, it's exactly a year ago since we started this video diary. In March 2020, lots of school children were due to come and see us, when the world as we knew it seemed to stop and COVID-19 swept the world. That was why we decided to bring the farm to you. We thought it might last a few weeks, and little did we know that 4 seasons later we would still all be separated in the way that we are now. How lucky we are to live and work on a farm. Every season seems to bring new challenges, and every year is slightly different from the other one. But all the time we do work in some of the most beautiful environments with a real sense of teamwork. The sheep didn't know anything about COVID-19. They were about to give birth when the lockdown started. So we broke into bubbles and we had to carry on. Whilst it's physically hard work for our amazing shepherding team, everyone is outside a lot of the time and experiencing the real beauty of the English countryside.
Oh, just a little friend from Cavendish. Went on a road trip.
When John's grandfather farmed here in 1954, there were about 54 staff employed directly by the farm. By the 1980s, we were down to 8. However, I realised when making these diary entries just how many wonderful, codependent local companies visit us every week to help us on the farm.
What have you got on there? Seed oats.
Seed oats ready for the spring drilling?
That's it, yeah.
What are you delivering?
A mixture of beans and wheat.
I've got to collect some organic wheat.
Where's it going?
It's going to Selby, Yorkshire. Oats.
Where are they going?
Waits, Speedy Cook, over on Northern Ireland.
If we save home seed, that needs cleaning. All of our machinery needs to be serviced and tested regularly. Morning, Francis.
Good morning, Alice. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah,
Tell us what you're doing.
I'm carrying out a 1500-hour service, which requires changing engine oil, fuel filters, and basically checking all the other oil levels.
Where there are grains, there are always mice.
At the moment, I'm coming back every week if I can. Every other week is a definite.
In the summer, our wonderful contract haymakers come in with very specific machinery that we don't own to make sure we've got enough food for the sheep in the winter.
It hasn't been a good year this year. As you probably all know, the lack of rain in the spring, so the grass isn't growing.
Oh, and then there's our Polish team. They've been visiting us for many more than 10 years now, and they arrived to hand pull our weeds because being organic we can't spray them. In 2020, with COVID restricting most European travel, it was touch and go if they would get here. But they drove in isolation through the night and got here safely. They formed a separate bubble and they kept on top of our wonderful supply of weeds. In the winter, when the sap from the trees is in their roots, the lovely Matthew Waddell comes and coppices our ancient woodland. That's a historical practice that supports a broad habitat in the woods and supplies us with all the wood we need to keep warm and hot. Oh, not to mention our lovely hedge cutters and our very talented ditch diggers that keep our habitat rich and our water flowing. Kevin, the bee man, he comes throughout the year to get his honey while making sure our plants are pollinated, and sometimes he removes swarms from odd places. There's lots of machinery dealers and inventors who bring us new bits of machinery to try. We have to keep up with technology that is driving better farming practices, and everyone does love the testing bit. We've plentiful ongoing training with experienced teachers. We even had a COVID-safe first aid day.
Charlie, can you hear me? Charlie.
Oh, then there are the shearers, and then there's the lamb scanning. That's not counting the bird counters, and the wildlife photographers, and the tree planners, and the organic inspectors. All these people bring real expertise and interest to the farm. There are so many I can't really list them all, but it did occur to me that there really are a huge amount of skilled and innovative farming related jobs out there. I don't know the statistics, but on the back of an envelope I calculated that while we're only 3 full-time arable team and 3 contract part-time shepherds, and the magnificent glamorous Wendy, who makes sure that we're all under control in the paperwork heavy office of a modern farm, in any one week there may be about 25 people directly on the farm and a further 25 working in other trades based in the old farm buildings. That's not far off the 54 back in 1954. Recording the COVID year has reinforced our sense of awe for our team, who work tirelessly and resourcefully. Our magnificent shepherding team, and you've seen a lot of those through the year, have enormous fun and are just out there whatever the weather. Young George joined during the COVID year and he's now well established. Are you hungry, George?
Yeah.
After all that running? And then on the arable team there's Greg, who is an absolute master at mending things and adapting equipment. Everything from trailers to tyres to new creations. He has an absolute constant eye for accuracy, which means that we're as productive as we can be. Sam joined our team in the middle of the national lockdown, and he's had to learn how to think like an organic farmer, adjusting to the multiple challenges of weed control when you can't spray. He's had to get to grips with the everyday skills of loading lorries at high speed and being prepared to do anything thrown at him. Then there's Peter. If he isn't driving the drill, then he's filling them up so that they can work at every available possible hour. He snatches the weather windows with the combine, keeping it going against the clock on lots of very, very long days. Very happy to turn his hand to anything. And Andrew, he's been on the farm long before we converted to organic production. He has done every single job and he does all the primary cultivations. Not to mention he's magnificent with a chainsaw, and he has a really acute eye for health and safety on a farm, which is invaluable. He's been a great mentor to Sam, as well as patiently recording the weather every single day. And he still keeps smiling whatever the weather seems to throw at us. In the COVID spring of 2020, everyone was happy to waive the normal farm rule of never working on a Sunday to try and get the job done in difficult circumstances. Alan and Rufus had to retrain, and Lily turned her hand to the sheep. The team managed to plant enough barley in that COVID spring to make 8.5 million pints of beer. They planted enough beans that would go into pig feed for 27 million sausages, and enough organic oats to make 28 million bowls of porridge oats. All in the grateful knowledge that we can only do our job throughout a pandemic, as we are lucky enough to have our amazing NHS to cover our back. Whilst farmers have always been completely dependent on the weather to deliver their produce, I suppose another lesson this year has been a very clear feeling that the weather patterns are shifting. Climate change is happening, and therefore we must, as a matter of urgency, do what we can to cut emissions and keep growing crops in a carbon neutral way. Since we kept weather records in the 1970s, the rainfall in our bit of East Anglia has remained at about 650 to 750 millimetres per year. But it's falling in larger amounts at slightly different times. It's still the case that there is a direct correlation between sunny days in June and a good yield, but dry days in August to get the harvest in don't seem to be getting any easier to find. We must keep experimenting. We've started our living mulch, where the clover stays in the ground year after year, and we plant the wheat in rows in between. We're bicropping with beans and wheat planted together and separated after harvest to try and limit the risk of crop failure. We're using sheep to graze the overwintered ground cover. That way we hope we can minimise the use of our carbon-releasing plough. We've planted 50 acres of agroforestry. That's where we've planted trees in rows in the middle of a field to bring 3D cropping into our fields. And we've started restoring a series of ghost ponds to encourage every bit of wildlife we can. Sadly, we were not able to have any weddings in 2020, and we were not able to have our field to fork events. With a revolution in online shopping, we can now send our lamb in boxes directly to customers. And we've had a lovely time working directly with our amazing partner butchers. Despite not being able to meet, John's done lots of online farm walks and talks, and we've had a huge amount of really good engagement with conventional and regenerative farmers alike.
You are really working with nature, and I think there's a lot that conventional farming can learn from organic farming, and what I would love to see is the meeting of the divide between conventional and organic.
2020 has been a pivotal time for farming, with a combination of Brexit, new funding and environmental goals, and a clearer understanding of the urgency and the ability of farming to help in the correction of the climate crisis. And we've really enjoyed the engagement with those of you kind enough to watch and see what happens on a farm. This was our 21st birthday here at Shimpling Park Farm for our conversion to organic farming. Thank you for sharing it with us in these isolating times. We will continue to keep our YouTube farm diary going, as the lambs are due to give birth any minute now, all over again, and there'll be lots to show you. All our diary entries are listed with their contents on the website if you want to look back. Please feel free to join us on our rather haphazard Instagram and Facebook if you want to see what we get up to in the meantime. And thank you for watching. See you next time.